Have you ever felt like you were smart, but still not in control of your life? Do you consume endless information but struggle to apply any of it when it truly matters? What if intelligence alone isn't the answer? What if there's something deeper, something more powerful that turns ordinary people into unshakable, resilient thinkers? The ancient Stoics knew this secret. And among them, Marcus Aurelius stood as a philosopher king who didn't just survive chaos, he ruled through it with unmatched clarity and calm. Today we're diving into how you can become dangerously smart, not just well-read, not just clever, but wise, focused, powerful in thought and action. Before we begin, if you're serious about mastering yourself and becoming mentally invincible, hit that subscribe button. Join a tribe of thinkers committed to living with purpose, clarity, and discipline. Now let's build the mind of a legend. 1. Wisdom is greater than intelligence. Anyone can be smart. You can memorize dates, formulas, and definitions. You can quote authors, ace exams, or win debates with dazzling rhetoric. Intelligence is common because it's easy to measure. Test scores, IQ points, academic credentials. It's often praised in schools, careers, and even in casual conversation. But wisdom, that's something else entirely. It's not flashy, it's not always recognized, and it's far more powerful. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, didn't define a wise person by how much they knew. To him, wisdom was reflected in how one lived. It was revealed in patience, in restraint, in clarity of thought amid chaos. A truly wise person wasn't simply reacting, they were choosing. Not impulsively, but intentionally. They lived deliberately. In a world addicted to reaction, wisdom is the ability to pause, to not be swept away by the tides of rage, fear, or excitement. It's the ability to say, I will think before I act. Not because you're indecisive, but because you understand the weight of each action. You understand that words, once spoken, can't be taken back. That decisions made in haste often leave a long trail of consequences. The Stoics believed that real intelligence begins when you stop letting emotions hijack your mind. It's not about being cold or emotionless. It's about recognizing when your emotions are clouding your judgment. Wisdom is discernment, the power to see things as they are, not as you fear or wish them to be. It's the clarity to know what matters and what doesn't, what to hold on to and what to release. Consider this: a highly intelligent person might win every argument, but a wise person knows which arguments aren't worth having. An intelligent person may master persuasive speaking, but a wise person knows that silence can sometimes speak louder than any words. An intelligent person can analyze 1,000 possibilities, but a wise person can see the one right path and have the courage to walk it. Think of wisdom like a compass. Intelligence might tell you how fast you're moving or how efficiently you can get there, but wisdom tells you whether you're going in the right direction. Without wisdom, intelligence can actually become dangerous. It can be used to justify cruelty, to manipulate, to rationalize selfishness. So how do we grow in wisdom? The first step is to master your response, not just your reasoning, not just your intellect, but your ability to pause, to reflect, to choose. Can you stay calm when someone insults you? Can you resist the urge to retaliate when someone wrongs you? Can you remain steady when life throws storms your way? Wisdom grows in silence, in observation, in the quiet moments when you reflect on your behavior and ask, did I act rightly? It grows when you choose restraint over revenge, when you choose honesty over convenience, when you admit fault, even when it hurts. It's easy to appear smart, much harder to be wise. Intelligence impresses, wisdom transforms. 2. Build your inner fortress, the citadel. Picture this. Within you, there is a fortress, strong, unshakable. Storms rage outside. Insults are hurled. You're misunderstood. Things fall apart. But in the center of all that noise, there is peace. Not because the world is quiet, but because your mind is. That's the Stoic idea of the inner citadel. This inner fortress is not made of stone or steel. It's built through practice, through discipline, through daily reflection. The Stoics saw this citadel as the part of the soul that nothing external could touch. It's where your reason lives, where your values are stored, where your sense of self cannot be corroded by circumstance. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, practiced this every day. He wrote in his personal journal, not to impress others, but to remind himself of who he wanted to be. He reminded himself that fame is fleeting, that anger is foolish, that death is natural. These weren't just meditations, they were bricks. Each thought, each reflection, each correction to his behavior helped build his citadel. You build your citadel when you say no to distractions and yes to discipline, when you refuse to be baited by someone else's anger, when you wake up early to reflect on your values, when you choose consistency over chaos. That's when the walls go up, but let's be honest, this isn't easy. The world is loud, people lie, friends betray, opportunities vanish. But the Stoic response is not to control the world, it's to control the self. You don't have to build your citadel overnight, but brick by brick, you make your mind a place of peace. Start with this. Ask yourself, what do I truly control? The Stoics would answer, your thoughts, your actions, your choices. Everything else, that's outside the walls. You might influence it, but you don't own it. So why waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable? You become powerful not when you control others, but when no one can control you. Not through brute force, but through clarity of mind, through resilience, through choosing not to react to every insult or challenge. Think of your citadel like training for a storm. You don't build a strong house in the middle of a hurricane. You prepare ahead of time. You train when it's calm so you can remain steady when it's not. The same goes for your mind. You journal, you meditate, you reflect, so that when chaos comes, and it will, you're not thrown off course. This is not about withdrawing from life. It's about engaging with life from a place of strength, from a place of unshakable calm. Because when the world can't break your mind, it can't break you. 3. Think like a warrior. Learn like a gladiator. To the Stoics, learning wasn't about sitting in ivory towers, disconnected from the struggles of the world. It wasn't about memorizing words to win debates. Learning was a battlefield. It was about survival, growth, readiness. Imagine a gladiator in the arena. He doesn't just rely on brute strength. He studies, he trains, he anticipates. He learns the movements of his opponents, the design of the arena, the weaknesses in the armor. Every day is preparation. Every failure is a lesson. Every scar is a teacher. That's how a Stoic learns. A warrior studies his enemies. A Stoic studies his flaws, his triggers, his irrational thoughts, his habits. He observes them not with shame, but with precision, because every insight is a chance to become stronger. You want to grow. Approach knowledge with urgency. Don't just read a book, digest it, break it apart, question it. Don't skim through quotes, reflect on them, apply them, make them part of your DNA. Knowledge is not for display. It's for battle. Read philosophy, psychology, economics, literature. Learn how humans think, act, deceive, grow, and suffer. Study history, not to live in the past, but to see patterns that repeat. Study language, to understand people better. Study your own reactions, to know yourself better. And don't just study success, study failure. What caused others to fall? What assumptions led them astray? How did ego, fear, or pride sabotage them? Those are lessons written in blood. Learn from them. This mindset isn't about arrogance, it's about preparation. Life will test you. You will lose people. You will be betrayed. You will face injustice. The only question is, will you be ready? Learning isn't soft. It's armor. It's your sword and your shield. When others panic, you think. When others break, you bend and return stronger. That's how warriors train. You don't need to wear armor to be a fighter. You need to know yourself, study yourself, strengthen yourself. That's how you become a Stoic warrior, not just someone who survives life, but someone who meets it head-on, prepared, sharp, and unshaken. 4. Master the art of listening and influence. In a world dominated by noise, true listening has become a rare skill. Most people don't really listen. They wait for their turn to talk. They nod not in understanding but in anticipation. They're more interested in formulating their response than grasping what the other person is trying to say. But to the Stoic, this approach is flawed. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening to the Stoic is not a passive act. It is a form of discipline, and it is the foundation of real influence. To truly listen is to be present. That means silencing the inner monologue, quieting judgment, and focusing completely on the speaker, not just their words, but also their body language, tone, hesitation, and the subtle shifts in energy, because people often say more with what they don't say than with what they do. You can detect anxiety in a tap of the fingers, dishonesty in a glance away, or vulnerability in a barely audible tone. These are clues that someone who listens deeply can use to understand the real message beneath the surface. This kind of listening requires effort. It's not something you do while checking your phone or planning your next move. It requires you to slow down, to create a space where another person feels heard, and in that space, truth begins to emerge. Most people aren't used to being truly listened to. When they feel that attentiveness, they open up, willingly offering insight into their thoughts and motivations. That's where influence begins, not in what you say, but in how you listen. Why does listening make you powerful? Because when you understand someone's perspective, truly understand it, you can shape your message in a way that connects. You don't just speak. You speak to the heart of the matter. And when your words strike at that core, they land with precision and authority. That is what the Stoics meant when they emphasized clarity over persuasion. Persuasion is manipulation in disguise. But clarity, that's power. The Stoic doesn't speak to dazzle or impress. He speaks to reveal truth. He speaks with intent. His words are not many, but they are meaningful. He sees speech not as a tool for performance, but as a mechanism to reduce confusion, offer insight, and align others with reality. In a chaotic world, the person who can articulate truth calmly and clearly becomes a beacon. When you listen well, you also learn what not to say. Silence, when used intentionally, is more powerful than noise. It can disarm an argument, invite introspection, or demonstrate confidence. The Stoic is comfortable in silence because he has trained his mind not to be controlled by insecurity or a need for validation. He doesn't fear the pause in conversation. He knows that in the stillness, wisdom often arises. Effective communication is also about timing. When you're attuned to others, when you've listened fully, you know when to speak, how to speak, and even if you should speak at all. This makes your communication not just more effective, but more respected. People begin to value your words because they know they come from understanding, not ego. To master the art of influence, begin by mastering listening. Don't just hear, observe. Don't just react, reflect. Learn to read between the lines. Recognize that listening is the path to insight, and insight is the foundation of impactful speech. When you listen to understand, not to respond, you set yourself apart. You become the person others want to confide in, follow, and trust. In a world full of talkers, be the quiet mind, the focused ear, the calm presence that sees clearly and speaks rarely, but always meaningfully. That is the Stoic communicator, and that is how influence begins. 5. Connect, train, and master your world. We often imagine the intelligent as loners, solitary figures hunched over books or working in silence. And while solitude is sometimes necessary for deep work, there's a trap in isolation. The Stoics understood that wisdom does not flourish in a vacuum. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and yet valued the counsel of those around him. Seneca served emperors and wrote letters to guide others. Real intelligence, especially Stoic intelligence, is not just about knowing. It's about connecting. Smart people may isolate, but dangerously smart people, those who truly change their world, connect. They build tribes of thinkers. They seek conversation, challenge, and even disagreement. Why? Because friction sharpens the mind. Intellectual tension, the push and pull of competing ideas, forces growth. Echo chambers, by contrast, are mental prisons dressed as sanctuaries. Comfort zones may feel safe, but they are the enemies of greatness. The Stoic seeks wisdom, not affirmation. He isn't afraid to be wrong. In fact, he welcomes the possibility, because being wrong is the first step toward becoming right. So he surrounds himself with those who think differently, people who are unafraid to challenge his assumptions. In that friction, he refines his thoughts. And in that refinement, he becomes more formidable. But connection isn't just intellectual, it's physical too. The Stoics were not just philosophers. They were also warriors, statesmen, and athletes. They understood that the mind is housed in a body, and that the condition of one affects the performance of the other. You can't think clearly if you don't sleep well. You can't speak confidently if your body is weak. You can't maintain discipline if you live in chaos. Physical training is not just about health, it is about fortitude. Every push-up is a lesson in resistance. Every early morning run is a vote for discipline. Every meal that fuels instead of indulges is a statement of purpose. These habits aren't just for athletes, they are for anyone who seeks mastery. Because the body is the foundation on which the mind stands, and discipline, mental and physical, creates clarity. When you train your body, you also train your will. You learn to endure discomfort, to choose what is right over what is easy, and those lessons carry over into every part of life: conversations, decisions, ambitions. The Stoic who trains daily is not just fit, he is focused. His mind is sharp because his vessel is strong. Beyond training and connection lies curiosity. Intellectual humility is the final ingredient of mastery. The Stoic never assumes he knows everything. In fact, he is suspicious of certainty. He remains a student, always. He asks, "What don't I know? What can I improve? What is the next level?" This relentless curiosity protects against stagnation. It turns every moment into a learning opportunity. Self-mastery, then, becomes the true goal, not dominance over others, but sovereignty over the self, over thoughts, over moods, over reactions. When the world provokes anger, the Stoic chooses calm. When fear arises, he chooses courage. When pleasure tempts, he chooses restraint. This isn't about suppression. It's about freedom. Freedom from compulsion, from addiction, from chaos. To connect, train, and master your world is to live deliberately. It is to step out of the drift and into the driver's seat. It is to build your tribe, strengthen your vessel, and expand your mind daily. And when you do this, you don't just become smarter, you become unshakable. You become, in the truest sense, dangerously smart. The power is already within you. Marcus Aurelius didn't have modern science, podcasts, or productivity hacks. He had discipline, reflection, control, and above all, philosophy put into action. Now it's your turn. Start building your inner citadel. Train like a warrior, listen deeply, speak with precision, stay curious, master yourself, and remember, this journey isn't about perfection. It's about power, quiet, disciplined, unshakable power. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, self-mastery, and mental transformation. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and as always, don't just learn, live it.